Jean? I'm sorry? Light? Yeah, we're getting there. I'm getting there. I have a list. That's different than the list I'm used to, but I'm getting there. All right. Are we on?
Yep.
Welcome everyone to the UU Church of Tullahoma, and thank you for joining us this morning in person or on Zoom or YouTube. Now we're going to do the chalice lighting. So Tony, can I get you to light the chalice for me? Where we find the darkness of ignorance, let us bring the light of reason. Where the darkness of despair prevails, may we share the light of hope. And when we encounter the darkness of hate, let us shine the light of love. Thank you. Okay. Announcements. We have a lot of announcements. Who would like to go first? I will go first. Okay. If you would like to donate to our church, you can always leave a donation or paper check, cash. There's a small shaker round box by the back door, or you can make a check payable to the UU Church of Tullahoma and send it to P.O. Box 331, Tullahoma, Tennessee 37388. P-Flag will meet here this upcoming Tuesday at 6 o'clock. It's about an hour, hour and a half. P-Flag stands for Parents, Friends, and Families for Lesbians and Gays. And it's a support group. Anyone who is interested in coming for support, to be an ally, we welcome you all. Things in the community. South Jackson Community Center here in Tullahoma has South Jackson Goes Country. That is coming up this upcoming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon. It is their one fundraiser of the year. It is hee-haw on steroids. So, and it's a great event. There'll be different singers every night. So come and join us for that. The MAC, the Manchester Arts Center in Manchester, will have Catch Me If You Can musical. Their tag group is putting it on, Teen Actors Guild. So that will be a matinee today, and it will be next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon. So they did a great job. We went to go see that last night. Any other announcements? Karen?
Our potluck, everyone had a really good time. We raised some money and sent a check to Community Cares, which is out of Attic Outlet. They run a food bank and other services to the community. And due to the kindness of Robin Dunn, who spoke here, she also donated her honoraria for speaking. And so we were able to send them a check for $200. So that was really nice. Next potluck is the last Sunday in August, and we have not yet chosen who the beneficiary of that fundraiser will be. But we look forward to lots of people coming. We had a really good potluck last time.
Excellent.
Also, the retreat is scheduled for the first Saturday in November at Tim's Ford. It is just going to be a day-long affair, so I don't know if we should call it a retreat anymore, but our social gathering will be had at the center, the center conference room area, whatever that we always have. I am waiting for somebody to volunteer to plan activities, and when I get that person, I plan to write a letter to the area UU churches and invite them to come join with us and, get to know some people and maybe spend a day at Tim's Ford. But first we need somebody to organize it. So that's what I'm hoping for, an organizer. Just email me or call me. And the last thing is we need a treasurer. So anyone, a member of the church who is willing to step up and take on the board position of treasurer, that would be greatly appreciated. I will help you through all of the questions you might have and try to make it as easy as possible. That's it.
Okay. Katie?
If anyone is interested in learning how to run the computer to, start the Zoom meeting and how to do the live streaming and all, get with me. I will teach you how to do everything.
Excellent. Also, do we have something after church?
Oh, right, sorry. We were going to have
Okay.
a little video after church to explain how the defibrillator works that we have now purchased for the church. However, I realized when I got the file from Costa that it's about maybe a 5-minute video at most. So I think I'm going to send that out through email and let people view it at their leisure.
Okay.
And if they have any questions about it, they can raise them. I don't know who can answer them, but we'll find answers. It should be very easy to use. It's got instructions with the device itself.
It tells you exactly what to do as you're doing it.
Oh, nice.
So
It's made to be sort of foolproof, but we do have a video that we were gonna show, but I guess I cannot stay to do, Costa's not gonna be here and I can't stay to do that, so I thought I'd just email it to everyone.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody on Zoom have their hand up for announcements, Katie?
No hands.
I have notes here that the Thursday discussion group, is it still on hiatus?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And then we're thinking about doing the writing group in first part of September, I think.
Okay, you're just
So-
gonna let us know.
Stay
when.
tuned,
All
right?
right.
Stay tuned for further
Stay
announcements.
tuned, yes, we will, right.
And then the Zen group is also on hiatus while Doug and Cooper.
No, we're doing it. Yeah,
Oh, excellent.
yeah, he's just sitting in a chair.
Perfect. So the Zen group meets here.
6
Wednesday.
o'clock on Wednesdays.
Perfect. All right, any other announcements so we can get
Yeah, that's-
perfect. All right. We're going to do a reading. It's going to be number 483. It is not responsive. I'm just going to read it outright. It's by Wendell Berry. It says, "When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free." That's my favorite one, and I will read that over and over. All right. So now it is my pleasure to welcome Nichole McVey up here.
We need to explain that.
We do this because there's a lag, and so it sometimes when you're trying to watch it, it's just disconcerting, I guess. I don't know quite what the word is.
The Zoom people can still see you, we just got
Yeah.
distracted by two of you.
Yeah, and one's a lag, so. Okay.
So I am more versed in conversation with people, not so much speaking to people. So I'll be referencing this piece the document that I wrote a bit, but I love seeing your faces. And I'm so glad to know that PFLAG meets here. PFLAG has been such an important part in Dole's and my lives, our whole family's lives. So that's just amazing that they meet here. So I've been on a journey with food for years now, and people already know what I do, right? Or the work that I do. You don't. Okay. Okay. Well, to let you know then, I think. So I met Debbie through a friend probably about 7 years ago, but we've especially interacted through long tables. And that's part of what I do connected to my business work, but it's also just a passion of mine. But I have worked with food for so long, so that's especially what I'll be talking about in my journey with food. So I've been on a journey with food for years now, and I've found that it's just ever changing. But it always includes intention, deep health, sensuality, and a welcoming place at the table for everyone. With the opportunity to garden as part of a small community this year, the landscape of my own life journey is transforming even more significantly. My healing journey started, or at least I especially remember it starting as a preteen. I had a health issue, and my mom decided that she wanted to change the diet to help with my food issue. And so I ended up feeling the way that the diet was implemented, I felt really othered in it, I guess. I ate differently from everyone else at the table, and on top of that, I already had a different father from the rest of my siblings, so there was already othering to start out with. So that kind of feeling of othering at the table really added to the disconnect that I felt around family and food. Food it equaled stress for me for a long time, and that really showed up as disordered eating when I was a teenager and a young adult. And I also realized that that's a way to kind of gain some control, especially as a child, but that's how it showed up for me. And also I didn't experience a lot of variety at home around food. We cooked a lot of the same recipes, followed the recipes to a T, so there wasn't a lot of kind of working around those and getting creative with the recipes. I do have a couple significant food memories growing up that really meant a lot for me, and I think kind of shaped how I've moved as an adult. One of those was holiday baking with my mother. It was that one place where it was a sort of respite. There was no feeling like I needed to hide what could happen, to my body. And two of the cookie recipes that I remember loving the most. One was Russian tea cakes that maybe a lot of people know as that, or Mexican wedding cakes, I think they're also called. And they're these cookies that they have pecans in them, and they're really dense. They're rolled in powdered sugar. I still love cookie dough, and this was a cookie that I loved eating either way. That's just something that I really remember about it. The other recipe was marzipan cookies. We would buy whole cloves, and we would, color different sections of the dough and shape them into these fruits, tuck the cloves in, and the cloves were so spicy, but the cookies themselves were really sweet. And those were two cookies that I loved growing up, and have even, especially with the Russian tea cakes, kind of worked with them to become more whole food-based, as you'll understand in a bit. The other big memory was my Aunt Carolyn gave me a walk when I was in high school. And she made sure, along with the walk, to give me all of the tools that I needed in order to use it, and ingredients for a stir fry that she had learned to make in Japan while she was living there. It was an experience that I really savored, and really kind of it very much is connected to my trajectory around food. I remember the ingredients for the sauce were garlic, ginger, soy sauce. There was some sesame oil, cornstarch, and just that smell as it cooks, and the light saute and all the vegetables as it mixed together. It was a very sensory experience. And then she also connected me with Martha Stewart. And Martha Stewart, I just loved the beauty and the colors and the foods. There was so much. I felt that there was a lot of intention around that, and I ended up using that. I use it now, connected to experiences that I love creating for people around food and connection. So then, that's kind of from the younger years. Then when my husband Dole and I started dating, he really opened me up to more foods, and I think this is really where I became even more interested in food and the connection with culture and people, and I loved it. One of the first dates that we went on, we went to this little Asian restaurant, and I was just amazed at the variety of the foods available. And then he actually introduced me to salsa. I'd never had it before at a Mexican restaurant, and that was so huge for me. It kind of started a bit of a foodie journey, I guess you could say. Yeah, and I always looked really forward to trying different foods with him. That was a really big deal for me. He had also grown up cooking without recipes. So, and I had grown up cooking with recipes, and they were always followed exactly. So this has kind of evolved. It was our 26th anniversary this year, and he kind of cooks more with recipes and then deviates from them, and I have started cooking more without recipes, and still referencing them, and they definitely help a lot. But our younger daughter has also followed in his footsteps, cooking more without recipes. And sometimes when we try to replicate these amazing recipes, we can't fully replicate them because they are from memory. So then moving into my adult years and parenting, this is where I really started to pull from healing connected to food, but implementing the dietary changes differently to, really bring everyone to the table and create a really welcoming space for people. And this has had an effect on the work that I do now, and then also within our family. So my part of the path with food really shifted when we talk about the healing piece. When our younger daughter was diagnosed with eczema, the doctor wanted her to go on prescriptions, and I was open to that, but I also had it's just a deep knowing that we could help to heal her body with food instead of the medications. And so I did a lot of reading at that point, and I removed wheat, dairy, corn, sugar, and all food colorings from all of our diets. And within 2 weeks, her rash was totally gone. And this was, it had really been bothering her. That's when I really started to understand the power of food, the power of what we put into our body, and the way, even just sometimes the way that the skin looks, or we experience our bodies. And so after that, we continued eating somewhat that way, but we shifted more to a whole foods diet after that. So I would find ways to cook the foods and bake the foods that our family had enjoyed, but shifting to more whole food ingredients so that the foods were just more deeply nourishing to all of our bodies. And this was when I also really started to connect more with the process of food. Yes, I saw food as medicine, but the process of food, the gathering, the preparing, the fire or the cooking piece, the being at the table and the connection, I really started to see that as deeply intentional. My relationship to it really shifted. Later, one of our daughter's teachers was convinced she had ADHD, wanted her to go to the doctor. I did the same thing, and I think that was within 2 or 3 weeks, the focus issues just disappeared. And I want to say right now, I am grateful for Western medicine. It has its place. When I can, I will always go to the body and to food first, and then to medicine. Then, ultimately, Dole was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in early 2019, and he initially did try going the medical route, but had all the side effects of all the meds. And so we together researched and had a lot of consideration. He weaned himself off his meds, which made me a little nervous, but weaned himself off his meds and decided to follow a whole food plant-based diet. Since then, he's been using food and exercise to control his blood sugar. And just kind of as a side, he has actually found that for his body, walking for roughly 15 minutes, not even very quickly, lowers his glucose by 20 to 25 points. So there are ways to help our bodies, even if we're using medication. It's great, but there are ways to help our bodies to support them through food and exercise. So the shift did take a bit family-wise. I will talk about the whole food plant-based diet just a little bit in a minute, but it took a little bit more because there were less foods that we were eating. And I really encouraged our daughters at that point to find for themselves the way that they needed to support their bodies, especially because of the type of diet. So I do have quite a few people ask what a whole food plant-based diet is. Some people refer to it as whole food plant-based SOS free, or WFPB SOS free, which stands for whole food plant-based and then sugar, oil, salt free. And it basically is eating food as close to its natural form as possible. Eating this way gives the body more complete access to the nutrition in the food. So instead of having apple juice, we'll have an apple. Instead of having oil, we'll have nuts, seeds, avocados. And sometimes, even though we do still eat bread, instead of eating bread, sometimes we'll eat the whole grains because the fiber is intact with all of these foods. Sometimes when I cook, I do use things like tahini, which would be ground sesame seeds, different nut butters, and date paste, which is pureed dates, for sweetening, because while they're not in their whole form, they still contain the fiber. That's basically the idea of the diet. So then moving on to long tables. These were something that I hosted before COVID hit, and I do miss them. Dole and I have been talking about them more. They basically, I started them because I wanted to dip into history, bring recipes, techniques, traditions, rituals, legacy into the present. I wanted to keep this all really alive while accessible. I saw long tables as a way to connect with women, or to connect women from the States with women from other countries, though we've also had men come. I was surprised how many men came, and they really enjoyed it. So I partner with the women from other countries and teach not only how to make different dishes, but then we have a meal afterwards and a conversation. I make sure that the meals include ingredients that support everyone, especially when it comes to vegetarian and plant-based diets. And I so appreciate the conversations that we have. That's for me, it's one of the biggest, most nourishing pieces of these meals. When I partner with these women, they talk about their experiences and the issues that matter deeply to them, and then we have discussions afterwards. Probably one of my favorite long tables was when I had partnered with a woman who is an undocumented immigrant from Mexico. And at the end of this long table, there was a man who was very conservative politically, and he hugged her and he thanked her for telling her story, and he understood some of the things that immigrants go through, and this was a very big shift for him. It was just powerful. Long tables are about having a curious, respectful, safe place for everyone at the table. The place at the table shifts, maybe the meaning around it, but it's always there. That's really important. And eventually I may travel with, I've actually been asked about it, I may eventually travel with long tables and have other people host them, but facilitate in their homes. I had another reason for wanting to host long tables initially. We were in the midst of an administration that I believed positioned people against each other. Things were feeling so stressful to me, and I believed that there had to be another way to interact with people. Around that time, I heard Brene Brown say, "People are hard to hate, close up, move in." I also heard a man in an NPR interview say that it's hard to hate people once you've had a meal with them because food is so intimate. I felt, and I really feel that to my core. As I move forward with long tables eventually, I'm especially excited to even go deeper and connect people with growers and makers as well. I saw that at the beginning, but it never quite, it didn't happen before COVID. As far as long tables go, one of them I hosted with a Kurdish ethnobotanist. I believe Debbie was there for that one, and she taught us how to make dolmas. She also introduced me to authentic sumac that came from her family in Iraq. That's an interesting experience. Sumac is sour, and she showed me to put it just on sliced onions, and I could pull sliced onions out during the week, and I had that. It's almost like a vitamin C sort of a flavor, just really, really good. Another woman that I partnered with who was from Oaxaca more recently gave me chocolate that was stone ground. So it was grown and roasted on the family property, and then in Oaxaca, and then stone ground in a little facility where it is specifically for grinding cocoa beans for local people. That was so special, and I've been able to develop these relationships with the woman that I partner with. That means a lot for me. So something that I treasure most connected to these as well is the close relationships. But we had a long table where we made handmade gnocchi, and I had a man let me know that the experience that he had was one of the most deep, as connected to it being intimate and tactile. And even though he had traveled the world and had different food experiences, that had meant so much for him. And he said that being at the table was like being with family. Excuse me, even though he only knew one person, the person that he had come with, he felt like family at the table. That's important. It's a place at the table, a safe place. And then another, we had ended up with a guy who played guitar. I don't know if you were there for that one, but okay. A guy, we have multiple guitars in our home, and a guy just picked up a guitar. He's a songwriter, and sang 3 or 4 songs at the end. It was just so special. And then I've also had women tell me, because for me it is mainly women, especially when it comes to the cooking part of the long tables, women have just really appreciated that connection and understanding and learning and the stories. That has been really important. And I work a lot with retreat facilitators and families, and some of the deepest nourishing work that I do is finding dishes and curating menus that again create fully welcoming spaces for any foods. I see that work as turning limitations into celebrations. So yes, it's a seat at the table, it's a place at the table, but it's also how can we take if someone has had a new diagnosis, letting them know that they have food intolerances or sensitivities, they're able to still eat the foods that they love with different ingredients that it kind of expands them again, makes them feel more expansive. So I want to shift, the last piece of this is to shift to the idea of food and the kitchen as meditation and how it looks for me. Though I found that this piece is always vital, the simpler that our food becomes, the more important preparation and tasting becomes. I love the deeper intention in the kitchen. I find the process of simply cutting fruit and vegetables to be meditative, and I can shift into that repetitive rhythm that lets me just slow down and get into my body. The smell of onions and pepper sautéing in a pan is intoxicating. When I make a French press of coffee or tea, as I push that plunger down, I count the 30 seconds and I breathe. If I make a Chemex of coffee, as I pour the water over the grounds, it's very intentional and slow, and I'm taking it in. It's very meditative. When I make a mug of something hot, it becomes its own meditation. I breathe in the steam and the smell, and I take my time drinking it in. Sometimes I even close my eyes. It's very much about going in and just connecting, taking that time. Habaneros, the taste of them, they have a very floral aroma, and they have this sensual heat at the back of the throat. That's something that I love. And as connected to the idea of tasting while cooking, there's a cookbook author named Samin Nosrat, and she wrote a book called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. if you've watched anything about it or know anything about the cookbook, it's very connected to the way that I work with tasting. When I work to balance those flavors in cooking, it's the same idea. It puts me into my body. I'm really savoring and sensing, what do I need to balance? And just that alone just lets me kind of sink into the process of the cooking that I'm doing. So, so I said I mentioned her book because that's what I'm looking for when I taste as I cook, regardless of whether or not I use a recipe. In tasting, I'm able to discern what needs to be adjusted. All of this is a very sensual sort of intention and meditation. I think it's important to mention that the deeper I study and work with food, the more I understand how vital it is to learn where our food comes from when possible. Who grows it? What are their practices? Who picks it? Are they paid living wages? Is there slavery involved? I learned years ago that when it comes to conventional bananas, people that work in those fields, pesticides are actually sprayed on their bodies. And sometimes they die and they lose limbs. It's not worth it for me to have a banana. I would rather, so in that case, I make the choice to buy organic bananas. I don't buy everything organic, but that was a very intentional choice for me. And then I'd say more recently, I was visiting with my sister in India, and there are women that will pick the teas, and they just weren't paid well. They weren't paid living wages. They couldn't support themselves. They were having to send their children to live in orphanages because they didn't have a living wage. So when it comes to especially chocolate, tea, and coffee, where is it coming from? Is it fair trade? Are these people able to take care of their families? And especially when it comes to chocolate, if you're not careful there is child slavery involved. I don't want my child to be a slave to pick chocolate for someone else. So that is involved in my own, in my deepening, I guess, with food. And I did write here, it's an area I'm ever deepening in, as companies are not always transparent, so it can take extra work on the consumer's part. And lastly, my food and experience around, my journey and experience around food has shifted even more deeply this year as I was invited to be part of a small community of women tending a garden on Twin Creeks Urban Farm in Murfreesboro. There's something so special about being involved in selecting the seeds to plant, encouraging and loving them to grow, harvesting the bounty, and then connecting with the process in the kitchen. Not only that, but I get to watch the bees pollinate plants. I watch the hummingbirds dive in and out. It's a very sensory experience, but then I get to take that and connect it with the table. It's such a different experience. I watch, experience, and get to cook with varieties of vegetables I didn't even realize existed. The garden has brought about yet another level of intention that I'm so grateful for, and it has brought about a different connection to food. I found something I wrote around 5 years ago as I was considering food, and I wanted to read it for you. You'll see that I've had this love and appreciation for food for quite some time now, even if the ingredients shift. Sensuality. There is an undeniably hedonistic side of food for me. You might be a bit surprised at how emotional I get around food, because I tear up from the smell of sauteing onions and garlic, add in peppers, and oh my glorious word, and I'm tearing up. I tear up because I feel enveloped by the rustic smell. Slow roasting tomatoes and garlic in the oven for lasagna make me feel so accomplished. A bowl of homemade pinto beans mixed with garlic, onions, jalapenos, and olive oil. So earthy and nourishing. I really am moved by food, can you tell? I tear up when I smell bread rising on the counter, the yeast, the warmth, home. I love the smell of fresh from the garden habaneros. It is so sultry. The peppers are little tricksters because once the heat hits, yikes. Merlot smells like sex to me. When sesame oil hits the wok, the way it sizzles and smells, watching the moment cream hits coffee or tea and starts to swirl in a mug, scratching only a surface here, Sharing those foods and experiences with family and friends, big love. I tear up when I watch documentaries and movies around food. My favorite movie is probably Chocolat. I could go on. Point is, food is sensual, sensuous. So I wrote down a question that I know there's a discussion later. And for me, I just said, I'm curious, what is your connection with food and kitchen, and how might you shift it, become more intentional, even just a little? I wanted to end this with a chocolate kind of tasting meditation of sorts, so you can kind of experience what I do when I cook. I brought a chocolate from a company. This is an organic chocolate. It has organic chocolate, unprocessed coconut sugar, and I'll put some in here, and organic cocoa butter. So I'm gonna give this so this can be passed around. Do you want me to hand out the napkins?
Yeah, that would be easier. Okay. You get some more. Did you just one each?
No, I would say take a few, so you can really get a taste for it. And I will mention, in case this matters for anyone, the I don't know how many you're getting, but a tablespoon of these is about 4 grams of sugar. So I don't, just in case that matters for anyone, I want you to know that. And we already did a meditation at the beginning, so this will be a very different sort.
Does everyone have some?
Thank you so much. This is a 70% cocoa, so it's a 70% chocolate, so it's gonna be, well, I'm not even gonna say what it's gonna be because you can take this in. So this is a practice that I do, so I'm not just stringing you along here. So before I taste, I take a moment to just breathe in and just kind of center my body, relax my body, and then I take a look at the chocolate. I hold it. I feel what that chocolate feels like. Is it smooth? Is it a little bit rough? How is it in the hand? That's going to have an impact on the experience in the mouth. So I pay a lot of attention to this. Definitely, what does it look like, the sensory experience, and then smell it. How does it smell to you? And does it remind you of anything? That's a big thing with chocolate. Is there a dish that you've had, another chocolate that you've had that the smell reminds you of? And then put it in your mouth and just let it melt on your tongue. The idea is not to chew it. If you want to chew it, do it. But the idea is just to let it sit on your tongue and melt. And what is that feeling in your mouth? Again, is it smooth? Is it more rough? What are the sensations? I'm moving a lot faster than I typically would, but it's very sensory. What is that experience in your mouth? Does it taste more sweet or dark to you? Does it have a sour flavor to it? Chocolate itself has, I believe, over 300 different flavor profiles. So how is this one to you when you experience it? Also, if you close your eyes, do you see any colors or images? Does it remind you of something from your past, whether it's a person, a place, a space, an experience? Is there some memory that you connect with the flavor of that chocolate? You're creating a memory now, by the way. This is an experience, a memory that you're creating within this little space. That is, and then how, as you swallow, how does it feel going down? Some chocolates, when they go down, they're a little thicker. Some are very smooth. And what's the aftertaste? Do you have an aftertaste? And does that remind you of anything? Is the aftertaste similar to the taste that you had in your mouth while you were experiencing it? This is, again, like I said, it's just a shortened version of it, but this is another way to connect with food. It's another way to connect with life. Those experiences, how we take them in, and do we savor them? Do we savor the foods that we eat? The time that we spend with people, time in the kitchen. So yeah, that's Long Tables Kitchen food kind of in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Nichole. Thank you. We're going to some closing words. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the infinite peace to you all. All right, so who wants to lead us in singing our closing hymn? Y'all don't look at me. Okay. we can just speak it out then if you'd like. Or no, Karen's ready. All right, so our closing hymn is number 414 if you all would like to take a look at it. And then if you all would like to stand up if you're able. Microphone? Oh, really? Yeah, we're gonna do this.
As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn